All right, I'd like to call the February 17th, 2021 ADAMHS Board meeting to order. Thanks everybody for joining in and being a part of it. We are going to remind you of the remote streaming guidelines we have. It's on the website with a 20-second delay. Viewers can send a comment through the live stream that we will address at the end of the meeting. Guests are asked to sign in on the live stream if they want to be addressed in the minutes. Roll call will be taken for each motion to ensure all members remain remotely connected. So make sure you're unmuted, etc., so we can hear you or hear your nod, whatever what we need to hear. So we will go on through the process. There was the latest agenda that came out. Kind of the way to look at it is under the budget committee, there'd be, goes through the letter G. That's not many items, so that makes sure you have the most recent agenda that was sent out. Yep, that one has some yellow highlights on it. So that's the one we're going to be going through, but we'll start first with roll call. And Danielle, could you start with that, please?
Sure. Melanie Beam.
Here.
Heather Campbell.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Jennifer Demuth.
Here.
Ryan Dunn.
Here.
Kelly Engelhardt. Brian Kress.
Here.
Mark Murphy.
Here.
Jeff Knighty.
Here.
Marianne Audie.
Here.
Polly Peyton Miller. Paul Rossi.
Here.
Julie Smith. Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay. Maureen Stoneman.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Board staff introductions, please.
Natalie Boland, board staff.
Danielle Lurie,
Board
board
counsel.
staff.
I'm sorry.
Michelle Sayer, board staff.
Sorry, Brad.
Brad Hill, your board counsel.
Veronica Spidell, board staff.
Michael Dotz, board staff.
Great. Any guests or any comments? Probably not yet, but nothing in the
Nope.
chat. Okay.
Nothing that I can say, no.
All right, so the agenda was set out. Again, this is the one you want with the yellow highlights that the budget committee was able to finish and go through in record timing here before this meeting. So appreciate all their work on that review that they'll present later, but that's the most recent one. So we just need approval of this agenda. Need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll
Ryan.
second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. And any discussion? All right, Danielle, roll call vote, please.
Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress, Brian, yes?
Me?
Yes,
Yes.
sorry.
I couldn't hear.
Marianne Audie,
Yes.
Paul Rossi,
Yes.
Julie Smith,
Yes.
Maureen Stoneman.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Thank you. Well, since we didn't have a meeting in January, we have the December minutes, pages 2 through 8. Hopefully you had a chance to review those and see if there's any adjustments or corrections. Does anybody have anything? If there isn't any, we'll go ahead and take the a motion and a second and then roll call vote.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Marianne.
I'll second.
A second?
This is Melanie.
Thank you. We got a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Okay, Danielle, roll call vote, please.
Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell, Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marianne Audie,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, Natalie, did you want to go over this next chart or the terms?
Sure,
Because I know
just-
there've been a lot of questions on that.
Just really briefly, we had a nominating committee last week, I think, and there was some discussion about the members, about their length of time on the board and their expiration. And so I just wanted to include this again because we've been doing this for so long that I know that we forget how long we've been on the board. So I just wanted you to see, in case you were ever asked or in case you wanted to discuss it at a meeting, your length of time on the board and your eligibility for reappointment and your term expiration date. So that was the only reason, just so you'd have it handy.
Thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome. Thank you, Danielle.
I would just add that we are a young board. All
Yeah.
those yeses, that's a lot. That's
That's-
probably a record.
That's
since I've been
fantastic.
here anyhow, so that's good
I
stuff.
agree. We're all very young, just out of college, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Daniel.
I have a
All right, we'll
question.
move on to the, go ahead, Paul.
Like Mary Ann Ott and Polly Peyton Miller, they're both no's. Does that mean that we can't get them back up when their term expires?
So they can serve 2 consecutive terms, total of 8 years, but then they have to be off for a year before they can be reappointed.
Hmm.
I don't make the rules. I just enforce them.
It's strange. There's a little bit of, I mean, sometimes they may end up just over 8 if they fall into a partial term to start. But if that's under 2 years, then they can do the full 2 terms. But if it's over, then that counts as a full term. So they could even be under 8. It's kind of strange.
Thank you.
We will keep you in the straight and narrow, though.
I
anybody
apologize. I
has
know we're moving into budget. There's somebody buzzing at the front door, and I know
Yeah.
you'll want Michelle for budget,
I'll
so
get-
I'll be
I'll
right
get-
back.
Okay, I'm sure it's probably shredded. The bag is out there right beside the front door. Okay.
All right. Well, we are set to go into the budget committee then. If there's no other questions on your terms, have any questions or concern about your term and where it's at or anything like that, let Natalie know. The budget committee, Natalie, I'm sorry, Julie, if you want to go ahead and discuss and bring forward the motions of what you guys did at the budget committee.
Okay, thank you. The first item that we want to discuss and bring a recommendation to the full board is for the fiscal year 21 contract amendments that are noted on page 10. Michelle reviewed all of those with the budget committee. And I will note that if you look at page 10, there are 3 items that have an asterisk. And those are for amounts that are pending grant approval, which she expects to receive in the coming days. So we are bringing to the full board our recommendation to approve these contract amendments, noting that we are approving the asterisk amounts only if those are only if those grants are approved. And so you'll see a total amount for an amendment for Ohio Guidestone, for ComQuest, and Carroll County Court of Common Pleas. Are there any questions about the contract amendments? If there aren't, then we would need a roll call vote to approve those contract amendments as presented on page 10.
Okay, Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Brian Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy, Marion Audi,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, moving on to item B, there is a then and now that Michelle would like us to approve. And Michelle, if you would not mind just kind of quickly reviewing what you're bringing to them. The committee is recommending approval of this then and now.
Okay, the first three that are in January, those are all services that were provided in the prior fiscal year, and we didn't have a purchase order open to cover that time period. So the first one, state of Ohio, that's for the pharmacy services. And then Tuscarawas County Sheriff was for the second quarter of the jail reentry. And Carrollton Exempted Village Schools got their invoice in right at the end of the year, and I had just canceled the purchase order. So that one's on there too. The one down at the bottom, Carroll County Sheriff, that's the same thing as Tuscarawas County. It's the second quarter of fiscal year 21 jail reentry program. So there wasn't anything open from that period over to this calendar year.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board about this then and now certification request? If there aren't, we would need a roll call vote to approve the budget committee recommendation to approve this.
Melanie Bean,
Abstain.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Brian Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy. He went away. Marion Audi,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Thanks. Okay, item C, I believe, is the January list of bills. And the budget committee comes to you with a recommendation for the full board to approve the January bills in the total amount of $349,563.86. Michelle did point out that there was on line item 711, the Child Advocacy Center, that is we pay them 2 times a year for their contract funding. So that is $17,500 is only in our list of bills 2 times a year. And item 720 under acute services at the bottom of the page is funding for a consumer's hospitalization at Generations Behavioral Health while Heartland Behavioral Health was closed due to COVID restrictions, and we are being reimbursed by the state for those expenses. Are there any questions for Michelle?
Can I just clarify one thing? The indigent hospital funds, that 720 line was originally developed whenever Heartland shut their doors because of a COVID outbreak. They are still, their doors are open. They're accepting admissions. Sometimes it takes a very long time to get an individual in. So we're also using that funding whenever an individual has days to wait to get into the state psychiatric hospital or whenever they're at capacity because of COVID. So you will most likely see these funds again next month. And if you know that Heartland is open, you may wonder why, but that's why.
Okay, thanks, Natalie.
Thanks, Julie.
Does anyone else have questions about the January list of bills?
My only question is, are we paying Frontier twice for two different things, or was one of those a catch-up?
We have several different types of bills from Frontier. We have one for our internet. We have one for our, oh gosh, we have one for our forwarding line. Mike, what's the other one for? Well, not for, hey, Mike, are you there? He's being silent. Okay. But our actual phone, our phone system, internet, and then call forwarding. So they're basically like 3 bills that are just all kind of grouped together, and they're classified under different categories. The internet
Okay.
would be under the technology infrastructure.
Sorry, I couldn't get my my mute button to undo there.
That's okay. We got it.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate the info.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, we would need a roll call vote to approve the budget committee recommendation to approve these bills.
Okay, Melanie Beam.
I feel like I abstained from this one as well, correct? Since it involves payment to Carrollton, abstain.
Heather Campbell.
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth.
Aye.
Ryan Dunn.
Aye.
Brian Kress.
Aye.
Mark Murphy, are you back?
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Don't be
Aye.
sorry. We get it. Mary Ann Audie.
Aye.
Paul Rossi.
Aye.
Julie Smith.
Aye.
And Maureen Stolman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Okay, item D on the agenda is the list of February bills. And the budget committee is recommending approval of those list of bills in the amount of $207,331.26. In our meeting, it was noted that there really were not any unusual expenses during the month of February. And so we come to you seeking approval. Are there any questions?
Just about the ADAM board admin, is that some sort of miscellaneous supplies or expenses down on 748?
That is for the HUD program. In addition to receiving rental funds, we also receive admin for both Metro and for the ADAMHS board, because the ADAMHS board does a share of the work as well, and Metro does a portion of it too. So we kind of just split the admin funds. You can see it includes rental and admin, but
Yes.
it's a kind of a 55 Metro, 45 ADAMHS.
Okay. So we get that funds, and this is the paying the cost for that then.
It doesn't cover the total cost of
Right,
an
gotcha,
but
okay. I think I understand. Thank you very much.
You're
But
welcome.
it's paying the ADAMHS board for the work we're doing to administer that funding, correct?
Right.
Okay.
It's one of the few federal funds that we actually get admin from.
Okay. Again, I don't mean to ask a stupid question, but you're talking about reimbursements, and this is the list of bills. So help me out here. This is disbursements, isn't it?
I have to actually create a bill to send to the county to get a check cut.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, and then I deposit it back in our account, just a different one. It's coming out of A54 for HUD, and it's going into A50, the general. So
A54. Okay, that clears it all out. Okay.
I love paperwork. I thrive on it.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, I'm glad you're in charge of it and not somebody else, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Government
I think those are good questions, Ryan.
Yes.
All right.
I'm glad that you're on top of it.
Okay.
So Ryan, if it makes you feel better, after my husband's worked almost 25 years in government, I always said to him, this is why things are so complicated in government.
I appreciate it. So I'm not the only.
There's no like general
one.
accounting principles that apply sometimes. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. If there are no additional questions, then we would need a roll call vote to approve the list of bills as presented.
Okay, Melanie Bean.
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marion Audi,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
All right. Moving on to item E will be the balance sheets and the statements of revenue and expense for January of 2021. The budget committee has reviewed these, and we did note that on the expenses sheet under PFCS Mental Health 2021, about maybe about 10 items from the top of the page, there is a negative in the amount of $4,125. But we, under item A, approved a contract adjustment so that there will be funds for them to cover those expenses and to continue to bill for more non-Medicaid mental health services. And then moving on down the page to the PFCS props, there's also a negative in the $41,927 amount, and that is also taken care of by the contract amendment that we made at the beginning of our section on the budget committee. Outside of that, we did not have any other concerns about the balance sheets and statements of revenue and expense, and we are recommending to the board to approve those as presented. Any questions from other board members about this information? If not, we will need a roll call vote to approve.
Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marion Audi,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, our next item of business is the calendar year adjustments for the county budget. Mike is bringing that up. Michelle pointed out to us that we approved this in December in the amount of $163,677 for that A54 line item. When she was finalizing things, she discovered that that was an error and the amount should have been $177,480.06. So there was a revision made to the calendar year 2020 county budget on that date of 12/30/2020, and she's coming to us asking for us to approve the revision that was made to the budget. The budget committee discussed this with her, and we voted to make a recommendation to the full board to approve that revision. Are there any questions? If there are none, we will need a roll call vote to approve this revision.
Okay, Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marion Audi,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, the final item on the budget committee is the calendar year 2021 county budget. We did not have the opportunity to review this at the budget committee meeting, and therefore we will let Michelle present that information to us, and then we will need a motion and a second if the board wants to approve the county budget.
Alrighty. On page 21 those are the receipts that we're anticipating for calendar year 2021. And we approved a temporary version of this in October. This particular document includes year-end balances. We were estimating in October, but this shows us what was left carrying over into 2021. So this is a little bit more because we have other sources that we're now aware of that are coming. So it seems like it's a lot, but it's also the appropriation and expenditure budget. It is not an operating budget. We maintain our operating budget on the fiscal year, and we will not exceed what the operating budget says. So this is just so that we can process payments. If you look at it, you can see we have a total of 6.9 million in the receipts, I'm sorry. And we are using $1,066,000 of our carryover cash balance at the end of 20 to balance this, to match the expenditures on the next page. We still have well over $1 million in our budget to cover it. So and again, it's not something that we're going to be able to spend $6,950,000. We're going to do it based on our operating budget, which is not that high. But it just kind of also makes it easier to move things around. You can't always budget exactly for what you need. And if I can add a little bit more because we have unappropriated funds, then I necessarily don't have to do another budget adjustment as quickly as I would if I was being very strict with it. And if you look at the page 22, that's also showing the expenditures, and they match the receipts with the cash carryover. And in addition to that, there are two blue shaded areas on both the receipts and the expenses. And those are funds that we would like to create in the A54 line item to add the CCP RSP federal grant, which was previously, what was it? Oh, yeah. That was consumer. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm having a brain. Corporation for Supportive Housing. That's what that was. And the second one was ACE Services, and that was from a transportation grant that was actually received when the department was still ODMH. So that's been a little while. So we have the same two line items on the receipts reflecting the same change. So I would just like to have, if possible, the whole budget approved for the total amount and with the line item changes.
Michelle, I just want to clarify before we go forward. You have that CARES funding as A56, A06. Did you want that to be A54?
I do want that to be A54. Thank you.
And so essentially, are you telling us, Michelle, that are we adding those items or just renaming them?
Those are funds that we're going to be getting.
Okay, new funding that
Right.
need to go into the A54 line item.
Right. They need their own line items so that, we can pay them out of that pot. We don't want to commingle federal pots. So, that's why I'm adding these two. We have received a little bit of CARES money. It has not been deposited yet. It's electronic and it's over at the county. It's earning the county interest. It's just not in our account yet. So those two are basically just, because new funding is coming in. I didn't add a SOAR one because if you look right below that, A54, A08, that's where the SOAR money has been for year one, well, SOAR 1.0 for year 1 and 2. So we're just going to continue with that line item for SOAR 2.0.
Okay.
Michelle, I have a question.
Mhm.
The higher figure for the income that we need the $1 million to balance. What you're saying is that we're approving a budget which is a little higher in certain areas than we're actually likely to spend, so that if there is an overrun somewhere, you can handle that without having to have a new budget. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is not
Okay,
our
okay.
operating budget. This is our payment budget.
Basically, payments authorized budget just in case.
Right. This is just for and it's very hard to determine. We operate on a state fiscal year. They operate on a calendar year. So every 6 months, somebody's budget's changing.
We have to, right.
So
Okay.
since
Thank
we
you for
have
clarifying.
unappropriated, that's why we can, I don't want to say pad, but cushion it so that we don't have to come back.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Mhm.
Michelle,
Okay, go ahead.
real quick, not to stay on this, receipts means money in and expenditures obviously is money out, right?
Right.
Then I guess my question on the expenditures, it looks like it's higher. And I don't know if this is what Ryan was asking. It looks like our expenditures are higher than our money in.
Okay, our expenditures are at 6.9 million. Our receipts that we're anticipating on getting in for calendar year 21 would be the 6.9 million less the 1 million. The 1 million comes from the cash balance from the previous fiscal year or previous calendar year. So at the end of calendar year 20, as of December 31st, we had a cash balance in all of our funds in the amount of $2,047,000. So I am just using a portion of that to balance this budget because the expenses are posted at what they're posted.
Okay, but going up, it looks like the general fund total for the expenditures is $4,363,300. And on the receipts, the general fund total is $3,447,500. And I'm confused. I would have thought it would have been flip-flopped. Our general fund expenditures would be projected at being less than our receipts.
We don't necessarily meet all of our expenditures in the period in which we receive the money.
Okay.
So we may have gotten an allocation in December. And so then we have this money carried over into the next year, but we haven't paid those expenses yet. So those would be in addition to what we already are anticipating for the next calendar year.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. It's confusing stuff.
Are there other questions for Michelle about this county budget for 2021? Okay, if there are not, then we would need someone to make a motion and a second to approve the 2021 county budget as presented.
I move to approve the county budget as presented, including the one correction, right?
Yeah, with the corrected line item, yes.
Mr. Paul, I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marion Audie,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Julie Smith,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Hi, Julie. Thank you. Sorry, I thought you'd gotten through all those.
Yeah,
I
we
knew we
ran
were
out
on-
of time on that last
I
one.
knew we were on one of the budgetary adjustments. I couldn't, I thought we'd gotten through them both, so sorry about that.
It's okay.
Wow, a lot of good information, a lot of good questions. Yeah, it's complicated. And right before the pandemic, well, about a year ago, tried to meet with Michelle and I wanted to draw it out and see where the money comes in, goes out, and crosses over and goes into county and all that stuff. And the pandemic started, and so always an option, but always a problem now with COVID, being able to do that detailed work with her. So, so you're all done, right, Julie?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So a lot of committee reports, a lot of stuff going on since the last meeting. So next is Mary Ann, if you want to talk about the nominating committee, the meeting that you had, and then the recommendation to the board.
Sure, be happy to. The nominating committee met February 12th at 10 a.m. to interview Rebecca Lemasters. Rebecca is a regional representative for Just Believe Recovery, who has its main office located in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. Rebecca guides individuals and their families into finding treatment, recovery, and aftercare. Rebecca would fill the empty seat of substance use disorder primary consumer, which was vacated by Eric Frederickson when he moved. I believe Mike has up there all the rest of the minutes from that meeting, if you care to look that over. Also, I believe attached to one of the emails from Danielle was Rebecca's application. So you can view that as well. She goes into herself a little bit more in her application. So therefore, the nominating committee brings to the board recommendation for approval from the nominating committee for Rebecca Lemasters as the SUD primary consumer. Does anyone have any questions or any nominating committee members that would like to add to this?
Mary Ann, this is Melanie. I just want it reflected. I was not, it says I was present at that meeting last Friday and I was not. So I just want to make sure that the minutes are updated to reflect my absence. Unfortunately, I could not be there, given the impending snowstorm. So.
Well, that's good that you pointed that out. We knew you
I apologize, Melanie.
That's okay. I just want to just make it accurate. Thank you, guys.
Sure. So without further ado, if there's no questions from anyone, I guess we need to take a vote.
Yep. Melanie Bean.
Aye.
Heather Campbell.
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth.
Aye.
Ryan Dunn.
Aye.
Brian Kress.
Aye.
Mark Murphy.
Aye.
Mary Ann Audie.
Aye.
Paul Rossi.
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann, and the committee working on that and reviewing it and meeting with her. And thank you for the board staff, Natalie, for finding her and kind of doing a lot of pre-work as well and discussions with her. So she's going to be a great add to the board.
So just a question.
Next is
just a question,
yeah,
Jeff, if
go
I
ahead.
can butt in. So when will she begin? Will she be on next month, or is there other work to be done?
So since Danielle, was that you?
It was. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What will happen next is I will forward her application and a copy of the minutes where the board approved her recommendation to the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And normally they respond pretty quickly. So I will do everything I can to see that it happens before the next board meeting, but
Yeah, I forgot that it got forwarded on. Thanks for the reminder there. And then is this our last vacancy? Will we be at 14 full board?
We will, Brian.
What?
I know.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep. All right, next is a Tri-P committee. They had a meeting this month as well. Reviewed some policies, which everybody also received as a part of the packet. So hopefully you'll be able to look through them as well if there's any questions you have. But it looks like Maureen will have a motion for those approvals. So Maureen, you're up.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, the Tri-P committee met last week. We had a meeting last Wednesday. The main purpose of our meeting was just to continue to go through the policies. We've been doing a review of all of the policies as well as adopting new ones where we've seen that there's a gap in our policies. So we reviewed the board member acknowledgement and the staff acknowledgement. Those are both acknowledgements that the board and staff will have to sign, acknowledging that they've received certain policies and that they understand those. Then we went over, reviewed again the whistleblower protection policy after it had gone out to Brad, I believe, and Brad reviewed and made some recommendations for changes to that policy. And then we also had the executive director evaluation and contract renewal policy, the GOSH operations policy, and then the board communications policy, which we reviewed. It was requested at our last full board meeting that those policies would go out to all board members prior to the board meeting. I believe those went out to you guys on last Friday, and then I saw them again this morning, were included in the email. So hopefully you've had a chance to review them. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Anybody have anything?
Can somebody explain to me a little more clearly what the GOSH system is?
So the GOSH is our billing and claims system, and Danielle is the one who's most in depth in that at this point. So anytime an individual in our publicly funded system of care needs treatment services, the agency completes an enrollment form for that individual. They send them to Danielle. Danielle enrolls them in our GOSH system, which again is our billing and enrollment system. And that is how payment is processed to our provider agencies for individual direct service.
So the board keeps track of all the individuals served and the separate costs for each individual.
Correct.
Okay.
So when we gather information about our most frequently occurring diagnoses or our highest age demographic of individuals seeking services, we pull that data out of our GOSH system.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If there are none, we do have a recommendation out of the committee to approve all of these policies and acknowledgements as they are presented to you. So we just need a roll call vote at this point, Danielle.
okay, Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Jennifer Demuth,
Aye, and I'll have to hop off the meeting in a couple minutes. I apologize.
we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marianne Otti,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
Aye.
Maureen Stoneman.
Aye.
Motion carried.
That's all from the Tri-P committee.
Great, thank you. Executive Director's report is next. There's one item that we have to take action on with the asterisk there, the second one. But Natalie, what'd you get for the Director's report?
Thank you. I have to tell you all, thank you for hanging in there. I know that when we skip a meeting, this is pretty intense from a fiscal side. And I know it's even more difficult when it's all virtual. I really appreciate your sticking with us. I will make this as clear and as quick and as explicit as possible. So we've talked about the SOAR 2.0 grant pretty extensively over the past couple months. As Danielle stated, as Michelle stated earlier, we're still waiting on our application to be improved. What we understand from the state is that the grant was approved, the amount is ours. It just has to work through that process at the state to get the money out to us. So the grant's approved, the funding's approved, it's just working through their state system. One of the things that I want to talk about today is we've talked pretty extensively about that phone line where individuals in the community can call if they or a loved one have an addiction. And the person that answers the phone will walk with them from phone call to connection with a treatment provider. I am meeting with 2 staff at Ohio Guidestone and Nancy Molnar from the TR tomorrow. So hopefully this weekend you will see an article in the newspaper connected to ADAMHS and Guidestone about what they are calling the Hope Line. More to come, social media posts. So please let me know if you have any questions, since it will be tied to ADAMHS as well, and you may get questions about this phone number. So I know I keep gushing, but I'm incredibly excited about this. Anyone have any questions about that? Paul, I see your hand is up. Are you just kind of high-fiving, or do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. On another platform, you raise your hand when you have questions, and I asked a question.
And now it's gone. All right. I gotcha. I knew what it was. I'm going to hand it over to Veronica briefly for a health officer approval.
Okay, I'm bringing forward to you today a request to approve Joshua Prince as a provisional health officer for community mental health care. He has been an intern with them for quite a few months. His background check came back good. He's done all of the training. He just got his licensure in January of this year. So I'm requesting approval for him for 2 years as a provisional health officer, which means he will be supervised by a supervisor in the agency as he's making decisions about hospitalizing mentally ill individuals to be involuntarily placed in a psychiatric setting when necessary.
Veronica, how long does that supervision take place?
It could take about 2 years because they have to do, I believe it's 45 to 50 assessments. And so I keep them in a provisional status until their next renewal.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So Veronica, can you describe the nature of that supervision? Is that something that happens via phone while the person is doing the assessment, or only after the fact?
I believe there's a supervisor that they consult with after. They can't sign off on it on their own, so they have to get consultation with a supervisor.
Okay, that's good. So, and I just, again, I'm still kind of in the first half of my term here. I was surprised that this is someone who is so green, that he is it typical that our health officers are placed in this position so early in their career?
I can speak to that one.
Sure.
When I started at the board in 2008, you didn't even have to be licensed to be a health officer or a crisis worker. They changed Ohio Revised Code requiring licensure, LSW, LPC, which made it incredibly difficult to fill those positions. Right or wrong, I don't want to editorialize, but licensed individuals who are a high commodity don't necessarily want to gravitate toward crisis work. So yes, he is young, he is new, he is interning, and I think that the fact that he's getting supervision bodes well. And honestly, parole officers and law enforcement can pink slip individuals as well. Correct, Paul? We just had this discussion.
Yeah, I know that you're correct. So
yeah,
that's fine. So part of his process is he'll assess the individual. He calls a supervisor. That person signs off on it. And so, okay, that's
you got it.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Now, I have a question. Everybody that's a health officer, do they work with varying agencies? Or are they all tied to community mental health?
The health officers that I bring to you are all tied to community mental health care because they're our designated agency.
Okay, what happens when there's a separation?
What do you mean?
Are all these that are listed as current that are due to expire in 2022? Are all these still current employees of CMH? Because some of them I don't recognize.
Some of them are contracted workers.
Okay.
So they have to go through a renewal process every 2 years. And so I get a renewal application with all of the trainings that they have attended to meet their qualifications. And so that application is a little bit different from the introductory application, but they have to send everything to me and I check their licensure and we go through all the steps of making sure they are still have met the criteria.
Thank you, Veronica.
Sure.
Thanks, Veronica. So
the approval needs to be done, so we just need a motion and a second to approve Joshua Prince as a provisional health officer.
this is Ryan. I'll move that we approve him as a provisional health officer.
This is Heather, second. Sorry, Mary.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, Danielle, roll call vote, please.
Melanie Beam,
Aye.
Heather Campbell,
Aye.
Ryan Dunn,
Aye.
Brian Kress,
Aye.
Mark Murphy,
Aye.
Marianne Audi,
Aye.
Paul Rossi,
You're away from me, sorry.
Maureen Stoneman,
Aye.
motion carried.
Thank you. Natalie, residential update?
So I just want to give you information about where we are in the very early and tentative stages of this. We had been waiting for a couple of things as we move forward in the discussion of a men's residential substance abuse treatment center in Tuscarawas and Carroll counties. One of them was the state to open up their capital funding again. The state put this on hold during the pandemic, and capital funding is a match percentage of a local project or purchase. And so for this, the state, if our application would be approved, the state would pay 50% match of a purchase of a facility. Mike, is there anything you want to add about that capital side of this?
No, I mean, no, I mean, we've done these before. We've had the men's recovery house in New Philly, as it was a capital project recently. The new purchase in Dover of the halfway house, women's halfway house, was also a capital project. We have a lot of these under our belts, but there's a lot of ducks you got to get lined up to make it all work out, right?
However, for a 50% match on a purchase, we're starting to line ducks up. The board in this program potentially would be the purchaser of the facility. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just letting you know where we are in the potential process. So there is a house on East High in New Philly that Pam Trimmer from Guidestone brought to our attention. And it potentially, with an addition, could be an up to 12 individual men's residential facility in Tuscarawas County. We are potentially going through this house on Friday afternoon, waiting to hear confirmation. Correct, Mike? For the potential of purchase and renovation of this house to have Ohio Guidestone do a men's residential treatment facility there. In my mind, as we're moving forward, there's two significant portions of this. One is the cost and the renovation of this house to make it work for our purpose. What's the cost going to be? This is a house that's a little bit out on East High. Are there going to be any long-term issues because the house is older? The other side of this is obviously my concern is always sustainability. So Guidestone is reworking what they think the annual cost of this house, this facility is going to be. We have built up a tremendous reserve over the last few years. You know that I don't want it to sit. I want it to go toward a good purpose. But when that reserve's gone, we still have to function and maintain a program. We certainly don't want it to discontinue. One of the positives about that is since we have additional funding coming in, it has been a little bit more difficult to use a pot of money, SAPT money, SAPT funding, that is tied directly to substance abuse. So that's one of the things that Michelle and I are going to be looking at is how much is continuing to remain in this pot, and is that something that could long-term support this facility? That's a lot of information about something pretty significant. So I want to stop for a second and take your questions.
Natalie, so go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead, Brent. That's good.
Just so we would actually do the purchase and be the owners of the actual property, but Guidestone would run it.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Boards, it's about 50-50. That was one of the things that we talked about pretty extensively as a staff as we were figuring out how and whether to move forward is agency owned or board owned. Guidestone had just purchased the house on Front Street in Dover for their women's residential, and they were not comfortable making another purchase. Boards across the state, about 50% of them have the agency own, about 50% of them have board owned agency run programs.
Natalie, I assume this is, I'm sorry, can I ask a question if that's okay?
Sure.
Natalie, is this a two-story home now or?
It is two-story. Actually, two-story and a basement.
Is it going to require sprinkling systems as well as other fire alarms, et cetera, which obviously we need, but
yes.
What you have any idea of a cost estimate at this point?
We do. In addition to whatever the purchase price is going to be, the sprinkler system, Pam estimated it was about $25,000 at their Dover residence. And Mike, what was the other item that was around 2,000?
The ventilation system for the kitchen.
Yeah, you have to have an industrial kitchen. So it was around $27,000 for the upgrades in their Dover home.
I will say that, this is a century home, which it seems to be pretty typical about what we end up finding for work that works for facilities like this, just because of their size, number of bedrooms, size of the bedrooms, those types of things. When we step into this, we'll be having a contractor start to look at things and do what's basically called a capital needs assessment to determine, looking at major systems, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, to see where they are, and what would be the necessity to replace them in the next 10 years. If it looks like that would be a necessity, then you kind of try to wrap those renovation costs up into the capital project, because you'd be crazy not to have the state pay for half of it. So you want to try and make sure that your investment now is not going to be something that nickel and dimes you down the road. So that'll all be part of that process, in addition to all of the regulations that are out there about how residential facilities need to be set up in terms of square footage per client for sleeping and space and toilets and showers and all of that kind of stuff. So still kind of early in this particular house because of the way it's set up. We have to be sure that those renovations are going to be able to meet the regulations when the final product is there.
And then being two-story, does that pose any complications with ADA? Do we have to be ADA compliant?
There are some things that we would have to be sure of. As far as showers and restrooms, we'd have to make sure that at least one of them would be accessible for an individual that would need it. We would probably look at one of the bedrooms being at ground level to be sure that that's available as well. We do know that it is an older home. Now, if we were building new construction, that's a whole different ballgame, and the rules are a little bit different for new construction.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I will tell you, the need is incredible. I've got 10 people in jail now that with very serious drug problems that we work every day trying to get them into some kind of treatment, and I could fill that facility this afternoon if I had the beds to do it. So, and that's at one court.
Natalie, you mentioned that it's kind of 50-50 across the state, board owned, agency owned. What have other agency or other boards told you about the pros and cons? What are some things that you've been cautioned against? Have there been successes, failures? What is the ratio of those kinds of things?
I feel like those individuals that have the agency own, it's a very safe and what's the word I'm looking for? Conservative approach. Those that have the board own agency run, I haven't had any concerns reported. Our biggest concern as a staff when we discussed this was the potential of liability. And when I approached that with the other board directors, they said, you're very clearly addressing that in your agreement of whoever is providing the service in the house that you own. So just making sure that was all laid out very clearly. Because they do this so often, they didn't balk at this at all. It just feels a little nerve-wracking to walk into this. However, we do own ACE, correct, Mike?
Correct. We own ACE, and we also own Recovery Point.
Correct.
And as board counsel, I honestly, I've been doing this a long time. I would prefer that the board own it because we have had some issues with self-help in the past about their facility, and we had problems with I just think we may be able to exert a little more control if we own the facility, and we also have immunity because to some extent because we're a subdivision of the state, and the state has immunity from just common negligence lawsuits. So I would certainly be in favor that we own it as opposed to the agency.
I too am in favor of that. I was just asking if there had been any difficulties in the state, but I think it's nice that we would have some control over tenant responsibility, who would be providing services if we ever had an issue with the person or the agency or however you want to look at that. We would be able to make a change swiftly and, move forward so that we would have some quality control, if that makes sense. So the stability there.
I would tell you that I think that the biggest con, and it's not a big deal, is that when you apply for and receive a capital project, you are basically guaranteeing to the state that facility will be used for the purpose that it was built for or purchased for. If for any reason the operator of that facility that you choose decides to get out of the business and they don't want to do that anymore, it's now on the owner's head to make sure and get another operator in to do that, which isn't always easy for these types of programs. Now, at the end of the day, if it got to the point where we couldn't do that, we could request a change of use, or we could do some other things with it. But there is that responsibility on us as the owners to make sure it continues to be operated for the purpose that it was built.
Sort of a nuts and bolts question. In addition to the sprinkler and the ventilation hood, what would the rest of the addition consist of besides the downstairs ADA bedroom?
One of the things that we talked about was for a house to be financially stable and sustainable, it needs to be between 12 and 14 beds. This does not afford, the space does not currently afford 12 to 14 beds. She's thinking about 8 individuals until an addition would be added on. So the addition would primarily add that extra bedroom space to be able to sustain the service.
Great.
There is it is a 1 acre lot, so that also does give the opportunity to have plenty of land to do additional work if needed.
That question, given the fact of what Brad just said, given his one court could quote, kind of fill it this afternoon, I hear that you're talking about potentially 12 beds. Has there been any discussion about making it bigger to make it 14, 16, 18, 20 beds? Or when does that become impractical?
You know, and it's been a while since I dove into this, but prior to COVID, there was, and I'm going to mess up the name of it, but there was a push from the federal government that if you could not bill for the residential level of care, if you had more than 14 unrelated individuals living in a facility together. And I cannot remember the name of the rule. So the facilities who had 20-bed units or 50-bed units really started to panic because Medicaid was their bread and butter. Most of the individuals had that revenue, that benefit. So I think it's, from a long-term financial standpoint, I think it is very responsible and safe to keep it 14 and below, because that rule was not rescinded. It was given a pause while the federal government looked at it. But yeah, they did set that limit on being able to bill for this level of care.
That makes good sense. Thank you.
Yeah. I would agree with you, Natalie, just from Matt's experience in the DD field and things like that. Those kinds of things definitely, I can't think of the name either. It's terrible. I'm sitting here trying to think of it. But there really isn't any indication that they're going to rescind that particular ruling at this time.
Correct.
Natalie, the other piece is that explains why the facility out here in Carroll County, they just changed names. They're mostly private pay, because it's at the old Atwood Lodge and it's way larger than 12 to 14 beds. And that's why they're a private pay facility. So at least we know we have that availability locally. I know we don't work with them directly, but we do at least have a private pay facility close.
Correct.
So.
What other questions or thoughts? This is big.
Will there be any need for zoning issues, looking at the zoning? Is there any city zoning with housing issues with where it's at? I know on East 5, there was a couple group homes there and things like that. So,
Mike, you want to jump in? Mike, you want to talk about that?
I spoke with Pat Russell. She's the listing agent. Many of you probably still know Pat. She indicated that it is outside of the city limits. There is no zoning on that property. And they are specifically selling it as a commercial property because of the value that commercial property has right now. Although individuals are looking at it for a residence, the idea is they're selling it as commercial because you can do pretty much anything you want out there. You can put a gas station or whatever you want. So I think we're pretty free there and being able to do what we want to with the property. It does have city utilities and AEP electric, so a huge bonus there, not having to deal with septics and wells and those types of things.
Mike, do you think the capital grant, do you think seeking a capital grant will have an issue with its location being outside the city limits?
I don't believe so. The bigger issue is when you start getting into things like a septic. They're very particular about what that looks like. But location isn't so much a big deal as far as more in terms of the facilities that are part of it.
Good to know. That got us in trouble before.
Yes, it did.
What do we expect neighborhood reception to be? Is anybody anybody in that area aware that that's the intention of the purchase? And do we expect any inquiries regarding that?
The good side is there are not neighbors immediately on either side. There's a little bit of space. We also have a domestic violence shelter down the same street. Men's residential may bring about a different response than the DV shelter. I think we have to be prepared for it. I think we have to be strategic in how we roll this out, but I think that's a very good question and it's on my mind as well, Heather.
Being that it's outside of town, will we also need a large van, some sort of transportation source for when individuals need to come in town?
Yes. We won't purchase that. And here's part of the reason why we won't, because nonprofits, when state vehicles are out of commission, when they've served their primary purpose, they are able to be purchased incredibly reasonably by nonprofits who work in the behavioral health system. They're still safe vehicles, they're still good vehicles, and that is only afforded to nonprofits, not county government.
Okay.
You
But you're
mentioned,
saying we wouldn't purchase it?
We wouldn't be we're not able to put a bid in for one of those vehicles like through as a county government.
Okay.
That would need to be a nonprofit.
Gotcha.
And you know, it's, Guidestone has a van that they use at the women's residential over. I don't remember even being approached about that being an issue. There's foundation money out there, and they seem to be able to have that part covered pretty well.
And perhaps this is a non-issue, but do we see any potential problems or conflicts with the domestic violence shelter being in close proximity and the possibility that there could be men seeking residential treatment who have restraining or protection orders against anybody who might be staying in the domestic violence shelter?
That's a good question. I think because Ohio Guidestone operates both of them, and Pam is the one who brought this house to our attention. I would hope she's thought that through, but I will make sure we have that discussion.
Natalie, what's the address of this property?
Mike, can you grab that?
Probably the Social Security building, isn't it?
No.
Social Security building? No?
No, it's right on the corner as you go back University Drive, across from Timken.
Okay.
The big yellow house used to be a farmhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a lot of land. There's a little garage there off the back on University. Okay.
Just,
yeah, they've been trying to
over
sell
one
that
acre.
for quite a while.
Yeah, that's beautiful inside. The owners are good friends of mine.
Okay.
Natalie or Mike, if you would check with Pam and Guidestones, do a Google map measurement from there to the DV shelter. Because that's what I was sitting here getting antsy about. If it's that close, courts a lot of times, they sentence people. There could be a major conflict with housing that close.
Is your jurisdiction to go down that far, Paul?
We don't have, no. Our jurisdiction line starts getting really confusing when you start going down East High. I've handled crashes. We handle crashes on that intersection. I remember a car running in that garage, and that was our accident, but I think that residence is not technically in our jurisdiction. It starts getting weird when you get outskirts.
So is this the existing Hoppert? Is it Hoppert house?
Yeah.
Is that Ryan that you're?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
it's a big corner lot that sits like the front of the house sits on East High, but the way you probably enter it is off of University Drive. So when does a decision have to be made?
Well, we are taking the initial steps, which is we're going to go through the house on Friday afternoon and ask some of our pointed and capital project specific questions to the realtor. Again, we need to look at the long-term sustainability from a financial perspective. We're going to be moving pretty quick on this, though, if this house is reasonable. None of this will happen, though, without your approval, consent, feedback. So I don't want you to think I'm telling you this is happening.
Right.
What price do they have on this property now?
$224,900, I believe. Yeah, $224,900. And Brad, it's 1891 West High.
Thanks, Mike.
I know it is. That's
So are we?
There would be a big problem with neighbors, even if we're in the city. So I think you have a bet because there's no zoning issue. You're going to have less problem. How far away is that from where the Star Alternate School is?
Right
Pretty
across
clo-
the street.
Right across the
And
street.
that would be a bit of a concern to me. You know, I don't, believe me, the need is so great, I would not, you know, all those other issues I think can be dealt with, but, you know, we're losing a lot of people to drug overdose deaths that we may be able to impact. Like I said, I've been, you know, it's been crazy since this COVID. You know, my caseload's down 45% on the traffic side, and the drug issues are taking 90% of my time. It's just incredible how many people, and it's all meth and fentanyl. So,
I think domestic violence is equally on the rise. I just want to make sure the two things don't conflict, where one would prohibit someone from seeking help either way, in the sense of proximity to those two things. So that really remains my biggest concern. So if you could speak with Pam about that, I think that would be advantageous.
Well, and I think, I don't think that I think that the distance is going to be enough, but if it's not, I think that that's just some serious education we're going to have to do with referral sources, if there's anyone with a domestic violence charge, that they're not an appropriate stay for this residential. Here's what I'm going to do. If not tomorrow is Thursday. If not Friday afternoon, then Monday, I'm going to send you an update about what we found out about the house and our next step with the capital process. Please think this over, roll around any other concerns or questions or thoughts that you have about this. I do not know if I'm going to need to ask you to come together prior to our March board meeting if we do have to get this moving more quickly. There's a lot of hoops we still need to jump through. But I want to put this on your radar. I want you to be thinking about this, and we'll keep you updated.
Just real quick, I just did a quick map. It's just under half a mile between the two.
okay, so wait, normally my court orders are 500 to 1,000 feet, so that I don't think that will be a problem. Honestly, guys, the fact that the domestic violence shelter is staffed and has protection, and there's also going to be staffing at the other facility. I think there's a trade-off that the issue is not as serious as you might expect initially. It's most of the time there are issues with women contacting the victim, and that's what causes sometimes the victim contacting the perpetrator, and so I really don't know that that's going to be a big problem. That wouldn't be for me as a judge.
I was more concerned about it from a consumer standpoint, just in terms of a victim feeling as though they might not be safe, more so than a legal standpoint in terms of that. So I guess we just need to have that conversation and talk about how we would make people aware, but be affirming to them that regulations and proper procedures are in place to provide the protection that they would be looking for. I just wouldn't want any consumer to not seek appropriate help in either circumstance because of that. So
those good points.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here. I think ultimately, based on all of our conversation, and Natalie and Mike, I think, and the team, when you have the visit on Friday, I really think that you'll have a much better idea of, is this right? Is it not right? Are we getting enough of our questions answered that you feel comfortable with it? What's the cost that's going to be? People think it's a relatively easy thing to take an old building and bring it up to code. It's not. It's just not. But I'm not the expert in that. But I think that as you keep walking through the process, I think you'll know.
Well, and I would just add that Ohio Guidestone has the DV shelter in Carrollton as well. So if a situation did arise, an individual could go the opposite direction if need be.
yeah, I know instances
the
where that's
conflict.
occurred, transportation is sometimes a challenge. So if they have jobs in the local area but don't have reliable transportation, and also getting to that site has also been a challenge for I just know on personal level, people getting there when they don't have appropriate transportation to get out of the county. So working together with both sheriff's departments has sometimes been challenging.
So more to come about this. And like I said, we certainly will give you an update when we tour the house. Very briefly, we had discussed in December the potential of partnering for a Family and Children First Council position with the ESC, the Educational Services Center. We offered the position to an individual. She was incredibly concerned about the grant status of a portion of the funding, which I understand, and she declined. And because we felt so strongly about her, we decided to separate the funding pots again. So the ESC went ahead and hired someone for their brief 1-year part-time grant. And God love Veronica and Danielle for continuing to fill a gap in our Tusk Family and Children First Council while we figure out which direction to go. Any questions about that? Jeff, that concludes my update.
Okay, thank you. If any other feedback, let Natalie know about your concerns or questions, and she can bring those up as we proceed with that capital funding of the men's residential. So interest of time, COVID impact and updates. If any board staff has anything that's significantly changed since the last meeting 2 months ago, if you could let us know what those are at this time.
Nothing here.
No.
There really hasn't a significant change because we are still a red county. Service delivery really still remains a hybrid model in both counties.
Okay. Good. All right. Is there any unfinished business that we need to address that anybody knows about?
Not from our end.
No. How about any new business that wasn't brought forward before the agenda came out?
None from our end.
Okay. No one else? Okay. Well, with that, then we are ready for a motion for adjournment. And so we'll take that and we will be adjourned.
So moved.
Ryan, I second the motion.
Right. So we don't need a roll call, do we, Danielle?